We saw, a glimpse of what we believe to be Prince Lotor. It's kind of exciting. We've kind of seen a buildup of the villain treatment from season 1 to season 2. Although we've had a lot of focus on the paladins, throughout the first 2 seasons, are we going to see a little bit more villain treatment and kind of development in season 3?
I don't know what the season 3 is you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea would be, we've been kind of escalating that, how we've been dispensing that information about the villains, and that'll continue to evolve if we go to a season 3.
Yeah, but we've chosen to kind of selectively release little bits about our villains, like along the way. We didn't really have one episode where you expose everything there is to know. It's a lot of it is just kind of underlying for people to kind of, if they're willing to look for it, they'll find it. Yeah. But that's just kind of how we treat them, and we look forward to kind of just furthering that.
Yeah, I think in our minds and in the writers' room, there's a full fleshed out backstory that goes all the way back to who knows when. But it's all there. It's just sort of a matter if the viewers are gonna find it and figure it out.
Sit through it. Yeah. You had some really unconventional episodes this season too that really stand out because I think you guys really got to play with character pairings and finding that balance of humor. I think Karan was really stepped it up, and I know at least for my kid, that's his favorite character because
that's awesome.
He knows he can find a funny moment when he's gonna
instant comedy.
Yeah, I mean like giggle in my ear, kind of okay, settle down. So talk about kind of that increase of humor and finding that balance.
I mean, I think we're sort of finding our balance as we go through this, but we always set out to make a show that it takes itself as serious as it needs to, but it can also just go fully wacky and off the wall, and that's where our sensibilities lie. And I think coming off of our previous shows, it's Karan is the perfect conduit for it, but I think we got Lance in there that's really funny.
Hunk always has. Tyler Levine's just got an incredible sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where we had to use a decent amount of season 1 to set up these characters, but now that we've set them up and we have our world to play in, we're more open to play in that world. So I think it may look to people on the outside like it's an increase in season 2, but there wasn't any mandate to all right, now let's increase it. It was just kind of that's just how it played out. But we always really had this world in mind where we can go as wacky as a space mole and as serious as the Blade of Marmora, all in the same universe.
There's been this really cool development too between Keith and Shiro as they kind of move along with Keith's heritage and Shiro feeling almost like time's running out for him. So talk about that dynamic, because it's almost like there's a dual leadership kind of amongst the paladins, but you feel like either one could be,
and that's
the Black Lion.
I think that's exactly kind of what we were going for. It was something that kind of happened in the original where we had these kind of 3 hero characters, and we definitely wanted to deviate and make each of our characters unique and interesting, but there is that unique kind of interesting story thread of what happens when you have 2 of the same. It's kind of happened with Shiro and Zarkon. We have 2 paladins of the Black Lion. What happens there, and now we've got Keith who's coming into his own, but you also have Shiro who's time tested and he knows how to do all this stuff. So it's just an interesting story dynamic that we think brings a lot of cool possible storylines to come in the future.
I think Shiro too, he knows, he's been through the most of all the characters, I think. And he knows that, hey, there's a huge potential that something might happen to me, and I need to set up who my successor is going to be in this situation. He sees something in Keith that maybe Keith doesn't even see in himself yet, and he's always seen it. So there's that level of sort of big brother understanding that there's still a lot of growing to do, there's a lot of potential. And so I think, as Lauren pointed out, it adds a level of depth to those characters that could otherwise in other situations I think just have been handled as the cool hero guys.
What I love about all these episodes that we're talking about is that we haven't even talked about the Lions.
Right.
And you guys have managed to take the paladins out of the main thing that we want to see, and you've made compelling episodes. So
we appreciate that, because it was definitely a goal of us and Tim and all the writers and really all the crew, I think, to make a show that was you want Voltron to be your centerpiece, but when he shows up, you want it to be a moment.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's really tough.
And ultimately, Voltron isn't anything more than the pilots that are
Right.
piloting him. He's just kind of a robot. He doesn't talk. He doesn't have his own personality. He's only as strong as the people inside. And so you really need to care about
yeah.
like those pilots if you're going to care about whether or not this robot saves the day.